I did not always have red-rimmed and bloodshot eyes. My nose did not always touch my chin, nor was I always a servant. I'm the daughter of Pope Urban X and the Princess of Palestrina. Until the age of 14, I was brought up in a palace, compared to which the castles of all your German barons would not have been fit to serve as stables. Just one of my robes was worth more than all the assembled magnificence of Westphalia. I grew in beauty, grace, and accomplishments, surrounded by privileges, amusements, and hopes for the future. I had already begun to inspire love, and my breasts were forming. And what breasts! White and firm, sculptured like the Medici Venus. And what eyes! What eyelashes! What black brows! What fires flashed in my pupils and outshone the glittering of the stars, as the local poets kept telling me. The women who dressed and undressed me fell back in ecstasies when they gazed upon me from whichever angle, and all the men would have wished to be in their place. I was betrothed to be the sovereign prince of Massa Carrara. What a prince! Of a beauty to match mine, compounding gentleness and charm, he sparkled with wit and he burned with love. I loved him as one does for the first time. The wedding preparations were made of an unheard of pomp and extravagance. It was one endless round of feasts, tilting matches, comic operas. All of Italy composed sonnets in my praise, not one of which was any good. Just as my moments of happiness was at hand, an aged marquise, who had been my prince's mistress, invited him to take chocolate at her house. He died less than 2 hours later in appalling convulsions. My mother, in despair, though far less afflicted than I, of course, wanted to escape for a while from so oppressive an atmosphere. She had a very fine estate near Gaeta. We embarked on a local galley, which was gilded like the high altar of St. Peter's in Rome. The next moment a pirate ship from Salé swept down and boarded us. I need not dwell on how painful it is for a young princess and her mother to be taken to Morocco as slaves. You may imagine that we suffered on board the pirate ship. My mother was still very beautiful, and our ladies in waiting, even our simple chambermaids, possessed more charms than are to be found in the whole of Africa. As for me, I was ravishing. I was beautiful itself, grace incarnate, and a virgin to boot. Not for long, of course. This flower, which had been reserved for the handsome prince of Massa Carrara, was plucked by the corsair captain, an abominable negro, who of course believed he was doing me a great favor. Certainly my mother, the Princess of Palestrina, and I must have been made of stern stuff to endure what we endured before arriving in Morocco. But less than pass. Such things are so commonplace that not to be worth describing. Morocco was knee-deep in blood when we arrived. The 50 sons of the Emperor Moulay Ismail each had their followers, which was in effect the excuse for 50 civil wars. Blacks against blacks, blacks against browns, browns against browns. Next to the diamonds and gold, we were the most precious part of his cargo. I was witness to a combat the like of which would never be seen in your European climes. Northerners do not have sufficiently hot blood. They do not have that raging lust for women so commonplace in Africa. Me hidden behind him. Scimitar in hand, he set to killing anyone who challenged his rage. At length, I saw all our Italian maids and my mother cut to pieces, torn apart, massacred by the monsters who contended over them. My fellow captives and their captors, soldiers, sailors, blacks, browns, hell, whites, mulattoes, and finally my captain, all were dead, and I remained alone, dying under a heap of dead bodies. Similar scenes were taking place, as everyone knows, over an area of more than 300 leagues, without anyone ever omitting to say their 5 daily prayers as required by Muhammad. I somehow managed to untangle myself from that great pile of blood-soaked corpses and dragged myself to the shade of a tall orange tree at the end of a nearby stream. There I collapsed from shock, from fatigue, from hunger, from horror and despair. Soon after, my exhaust sentence surrendered to a sleep that was more like a trance than a rest. I was in the state of feebleness and insensibility, hovering between life and death, when I felt the pressure of something rubbing up and down on my body. I opened my eyes. I beheld a white man, rather attractive, who was moaning on top of me and muttering through clenched teeth.